Welcome to Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond, presented by 99.9 Bay FM and going across Australia on the Community Radio Network. We honour a woman's right to choice, her body, her baby and their birth. We hope to inspire and inform you, our sisterhood and families, through the thresholds of birth and your unique journey to parenthood. And you're here with me, Sally Cusack.
Our cultural belief is that we think that is an investment in the future by getting back to work and being productive and successful and whatever other things that we all hold as important in this Western world, when in reality that's actually not the investment in the future. Our children and their emotional well-being and the way we respond and treat them, that is the investment in our future that we really need to understand as a culture.
In this show, we're going to be speaking with Paul Crebar about how we can make our species and life on our planet more sustainable. Paul proposes that we start to mine the early years of children rather than coal and coal seam gas. Let's start seeing our children and what they hold within them right now as being crucial for our future. This may mean reevaluating how we're running things at the moment. Paul is a father of one and stepfather to 3 children. He's a passionate gardener, writer and esoteric student. Paul works as the communications manager at Santos Organics, but he has also co-founded the community non-profit collaborations Byron Fair Food and Plastic Free Byron. He sits on the board of Mullum Seed and is the creative director of Luminous Youth and is a coordinator of Byron Hinterland Seed Savers. Paul is also the production manager of Renewfest, an annual celebration of sustainable change in action. Welcome to the show today, Paul.
Thank you very much, Sally. It's lovely to be here.
Paul, what do you feel are the major issues facing parents in today's world?
It really all stems down to our cultural norms disempowering us as parents. By us following the history of how things were done with ourselves or past generations, we fall into the trap of really disempowering ourselves to create a future that is sustainable and is harmonious with the earth and each other. It's a cultural thing that really has to shift. We're sort of stuck in this pattern of handing over the responsibility to fulfill our children's emotional needs to structures that physically can't do that. Our cultural norm is to have children, and then at a certain point they go away from us as parents, and they're in the care of others, and that sort of happens for this 10-year period up to the age of 12 potentially, where their brains are still actually forming. The human brain isn't completely formed at birth. It continues to form from birth all the way through to the age of 12. So the way that a child's emotions are responded to throughout that period of time creates a different brain, and creates a brain that is then hardwired in that model. That system physically can't respond to that child's emotional needs in a way that would produce the most harmonious and connected child. And it's double-edged sword, because we often fall into this. The 99% of us are in this pattern of needing to get back to work after birth, and needing to get back to doing things that we were doing prior to having this child, and that's the big cultural norm that really has to shift, because by being busy and going back to what we were doing previously and fulfilling our potential desires for, it may be to be productive, or it may be to accumulate more wealth, etc., or whatever it may be, why we return to our former life after a baby, that essentially leads to us handing over that responsibility for our child's emotional needs. So when a child feelings are promptly and accurately responded to, then they are able to internalize how we respond to her or him, and then they will learn to respond to themselves with that same promptness and compassion that we have done to them. When that feeling comes up and they're completely supported in that feeling, which they can do one-on-one when they're with their mother or their father, then they realize, oh, cool, so that's the feeling that comes back to me. So as they grow older, then they can have that feeling come up and they know how to respond to that because they've felt that and they've experienced it themselves. So they're able to manage their own feelings and deal with difficult situations and challenges throughout their life because they're hardwired to be able to do so via the feelings they've experienced with their mother or their father.
What I also see in this mix is that there are economic imperatives that create this.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing for us to sort of pull ourselves out of this and reimagine another way that we can meet the needs of food on the table and a roof over our heads. But people may also not be terribly aware of the emotional needs not being met that you're talking about here.
Yeah.
So are you saying that when children are in the company of, say, a big group of other children with only one or two adults present, there's only so much that the adult can do to address their emotional needs?
That's right, yeah. When we talk about the emotional needs being addressed, it doesn't have to be the mother or father, but it has to be someone who can be completely present and there to provide at any time that these emotional needs come up for that child. And
which is frequent.
Which is very frequent.
It's very, very frequent.
Very,
the younger they are,
frequent.
it's all the time.
In a modern schooling environment, you've got one teacher and 20, 30 kids, for example. And so those physical locations where there's, one person to respond to emotional needs of a child per 10 children or 20 children or however many it is, they physically cannot do that.
It's a massive task. They're dedicated people, but it is a massive task.
And that's what I mean. They are so dedicated, and they would love to be doing that, but physically, it's not possible to do so. And there's an author, John Abbott, he's just written his final paper of the 21st Century Learning Initiative, and he talks about our culture is that we stack resources and energy on teenagers and older kids when the ones who actually need the support and resources is actually our youngest because their brains are still forming. So the culture of our education system and our model of learning is also backwards. And if you are interested in learning more about that, I'd highly recommend checking out the 21st Century Learning Initiative. It's got a stack of research and papers looking at neuroscience and neurobiology and looking at the brain and really showing that the way that we're structuring our economic resources to give children the best and healthiest future is actually backward. We should be focusing a lot more of our resources on younger children and getting their emotional needs met. And we haven't had the opportunity to understand throughout our history that a baby in utero and through birth and through the formative years, the first 12 years, they have feelings. They have so many feelings and they absorb feelings around them. And our culture, I had a friend say to me 12 months ago, oh, but you don't know that they feel that. And to me, I was like, wow, that's actually our cultural norm, that we feel, oh, well, when babies are born, they don't actually have feelings. They're just babies and we don't know anything about them. But neurobiology shows us now that, babies do have feelings from the moment they're in utero, actually, and throughout the birthing process and childhood. They feel everything that goes on with them.
And those feelings have a direct input into their development and their core beliefs. Yeah. If we learn to, within our culture, grab our economic policies and turn them around to actually meet what the needs of children actually are, we'd we'd all be so much better off. I mean, there's so much science, as you were saying before, that's coming out now about the early years of children. And there's also the Dunedin study. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
It's a study over 40 years of children from birth. And it's the children are now in their 40s, and it's a study of over 1,000 children who were born in Dunedin in New Zealand. And the outcomes of that study is that all of our investment needs to go into the first 5 years. When those issues are addressed for the first 5 years, it saves us massive amounts of money and trauma, because the amount of money that's needed after those years to correct the things, the unmet needs of children, is a massive problem to our society. You're tuned to the Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond show. So, Paul, we were talking about the major issues facing parents in today's world, and we started to talk a bit about the economic pressures for parents.
It's a topic that it can be a little bit sensitive because it doesn't apply to everybody, and certain people, have, I guess, the absolute need to utilise services of childcare in order to provide food and roofing above their head.
Absolutely.
And I totally honour those people and respect what they do. There is another probably greater majority of people, however, who I guess have an opportunity to look at the macrocosm of the economic environment that is stimulated by growth for the purpose of growth. There's not a real... there's so many articles out there going, why are we in constant strive for growth in economic conditions on the macrocosm? And it is a mirror of the microcosm, because the societal norm that we spoke about earlier, whereas the parents return back to their life pre-baby after the baby's born, that is essentially, once again, to majority of the time, is to stimulate further growth within their financial conditions, and by doing so, it's yes, it might be increasing the financial status or conditions or the material conditions of their family and themselves, but by doing so, it takes away from the ability of the primary carers of that child to meet the emotional needs of that baby or that child in a prompt and assertive manner. And I know this for myself because I experience it when I have a day at work that I'm fully worked a full day and I come home tired, and I am not as present with my child and her emotional needs as I am when I am not feeling completely strung out and stressed from work. And so I have decided to reduce the amount of work that I do every week in order to be much more present and available for my child and her emotional needs.
Wouldn't it be nice for our society to therefore recognise the investment that parents are making in their children, that it's for the greater social good, and if it was easier for all of us to be able to do that.
That's right.
Our social structures and the economic structures do not support people doing that.
100%.
You have to step right out of the normal paradigm, which is all about keep acquiring because you want to be able to hand on to your children. You want them to inherit something. But, the way, I suppose what you're saying here is that this constant striving for growth has, we've got a limitation on our resources, and
that's right, yeah.
This is draining our resources.
Yes.
So the stability of our children's emotional and physical and mental development is in fact what we need to be mining here instead of coal and
100%.
Real estate prices and whatever else.
100%. Yeah, and that's
I see.
That's not really just that's not my belief. That is backed up by a lot of revolutionary new research. Robin Grille talks about it as psychohistorians who have been researching